Good evening. This is Tuesday, April 26th. Holy smokes. 2022 meeting of the Town of Berlin Planning Board. As a preliminary matter, please note this meeting is being recorded and that some of the attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you. The ugly band t-shirt you decided to wear tonight or anything you intend to or not screen share on your computer. Anything that you broadcast will be captured and recorded forever and ever and may possibly wind up as a TikTok video to be shared amongst your neighbors and friends. This is Tom Sanford, Chair of the Planning Board. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me prior to me calling the meeting to order. Planning Board members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jay Teach.
Here.
Carolyn McDonald.
Here.
Timothy Wheeler.
Here.
Tom Sanford here. And I will get to anticipated speakers on the agenda a little bit later. With a quorum of the board present, I call this meeting to order at 7:38 p.m. Tuesday, April 26th, 2022. This is an open meeting of the planning board and being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. Specific information and general guidelines for the remote participation by members of the public can be found on the Town of Berlin website. The governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location and allows and encourages us to participate remotely. For this meeting, the planning board is convening using the Zoom platform as posted on the agenda, which includes links for the public to join this meeting. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will invite each board member by name to provide any comment, questions, penetrating insights, and/or motions. Please hold all your insights until your name is called. Board members and speakers on the agenda, please remember to mute your computer or telephone when you're not speaking. Please speak clearly to ensure accurate minutes are recorded. For any response, please wait until you're yielded the floor to state your name before speaking. If a board member wishes to engage in conversation with another, please do so through me to avoid multiple conversations at the same time. Lastly, please note that each vote in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Thank you all for your understanding and cooperation. So we don't have any, well, we had some mail, but I opened it all and it was mostly notices for hearings and such from around the neighboring towns. Nothing earth-shattering, typical stuff. We don't have any bills, but we didn't have any bills. Jay said that the woman found the A&R plan.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Karen. Yep.
Yep. And then
Looking in the wrong mailbox.
good. Okay. Well, that satisfied that. And then I let Seth know too that the plan was available for him, and he thought his proponent had already picked it up, but it's still in the mailbox.
Huh.
So it's available. They know it. So, and he needs to drop off a check to us. Now we had set up for 7:45. We had a last minute addition to the agenda. And pardon? And Waterman Design, right?
Right. Randy's here.
Randy Waterman, is he Waterman Design?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And Annie Rose, is she there?
Chris Henny has his hand up. Chris.
Oh, thank you, Carolyn. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Chris.
Christopher Senny. I am now representing Annie Treforos, who, with her husband, purchased the property at 256 Central Street. And so I just wanted to let you know that I'm here, and I just wanted to assist in this very preliminary and general conversation. I wasn't sure if Randy could join us, but Carolyn just mentioned that he may be online.
Yep.
Annie asked Randy to do a few sketches, just very rough sketches of some possible redevelopment proposals for the 256 Central Street property. And since Randy is able to make this meeting, I would let him, if he's able to, share his screen and show you those plans. Also, I just want to make sure that Annie is here in attendance.
So I have an Anthony and a Mike. And Anthony's hand is up. Tom,
Okay, can you promote him, please?
Hi.
Anthony?
Yes,
Oh.
it's my husband. Hi, I'm Annie.
okay. All right, so Tom, do you want me to promote everybody as panelists?
Yeah, for this, for everybody that's involved in this.
Okay, yeah. All right, so there is Annie. There is Chris. There is Randy. And Mike. And I'm assuming Lynn is here as an abutter.
Thank you.
Lynn,
No, I'm not.
okay. All right, I'm gonna put you back in the audience for now then. Just raise your hand if you do want to say anything though. All right. Okay. I think
Okay, thank you all for, accommodating us in this little short window that we can get you in. So I think probably the best bet is if Randy can take the lead and show us what you're proposing. And we really have a hard stop at 8 o'clock, so we'll get going.
Okay, good evening. Chris, I have not had a chance to bring these drawings up or anything, so I don't know if you had a chance to send them to the board.
I didn't, but I could share
Okay.
my screen.
If you can do that, I just walked in like 3 seconds ago, so,
Okay,
but if you can do that, they're very early concepts, but it would probably be helpful if you can.
sure. Before I do that, I just want to introduce Annie and her husband, Tony, on the screen that says Anthony. And I met with Annie and her husband, Tony, on the site last week, and they showed me the properties that exist there now. This is right across from the mobile station, right near the entrance to 495. And so I just wanted you to meet them. And if I can, I'll share my screen and show you Randy's rough concept.
Okay, thank you.
Bear with me. Can you see some sketches on the screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Yep.
Oh, okay. This is 256 Central Street. It has presently a barn, a house, and a long greenhouse. You may recognize it, or you may know this property. Again, it's right across the street from the mobile gas station on Route 62. It has significant wetlands in the back and a pond. And Randy, I could let you introduce these concept plans, but I can shift from page to page if you'd like.
Sure, okay, that's fine.
Okay,
So again, this is just compiled from record information, but we met with Annie and Tony recently in the last month or so and just talked about some ideas for the site. Obviously, the buildings that are out here are very dilapidated. They're pretty sad looking and tough shape. It's a 5.5 acre parcel in total. You can see the zoning line about 3/4 of the way over to the left. There you go. So that line, the land to the west of that line is residential agricultural, and then the land to the east is agricultural, residential, and conservation. So the uses on the site that are allowed are essentially single-family homes and agricultural related uses. We had our wetlands person come out and just walk the site and give us a rough idea. And so the line that you see there with the green hatch, that is a wetland, bordering vegetated wetland that borders on the pond that's over on the west side of the property. And then there's a stream that runs out of that pond that runs out and eventually crosses under the railroad over on exactly over on the east side of the site. So there's probably, 40% of the site is wetland and maybe, 60% is upland. And as Chris mentioned, if you see down the bottom of the page on the right, the mobile gas station is right across from the site, and Taylor Road comes out just to the east of that. And then to the west of that, there is a wooded parcel with no structure. And then there is a single family house beyond that across from this site. And so when we met with Annie and Tony, the idea was to look at maybe just a couple of options that might just really replace these buildings and try and come up with some concepts that might be something that would be appropriate for this location where you're that close to the highway, and really would remove the existing buildings and suggest other uses. And really the idea was to see if the board would have any interest in us looking at any of these things any further. So if you want to jump to the next sheet. So really there were two primary uses that we talked about. This first one is a multi-story residential buildings. There are two of them. The one in the center of the site is sort of similar in scale to the one over at River Bridge that we did with Chris. This is a 24-unit building, 3 stories tall. And the building over on the right is a little bit smaller scale. It's a 17-unit building that's 3 stories tall. And so each of them have the appropriate parking. And there would be obviously stormwater detention, potentially a pool for an amenity on the site. And then really, I think any use of this property, the biggest thing to think about really is how do you get in and out of the site and not complicate the vehicle circulation in this area. So we really looked at trying to have vehicles as they're heading in a westerly direction from 495, be able to enter into the parking lot and circulate and come out at one location. So that would be central to the two buildings. And then west of that, there would be a separate parking lot that people could come into the residential unit that are maybe on the other side of the building, and they would have their own in and out. So we really just have one in and 2 locations where we would have an in and out. And, really, I think that's one of the big things that has to be looked at no matter what use is eventually decided at this location. But this again was a full multifamily residential type of use just because of its proximity to 495. The next sketch is really the exact same building program, 2 buildings, the same number of units, 24 in the westerly, 17 in the easterly, and we really just oriented them a little differently. So in this one, we were trying to push more of the parking behind the building, so the building would stand out on the street and be a little more visible and the parking less visible. But other than that, essentially, it's the same concept. There would be one entry on the east and then 2 separate locations where you'd have an in and out exit from the site. Same type of amenities, pretty much a very similar layout to the earlier one. And then the next layout, this was the last option that we looked at. And this one we had talked to Annie about different, ideas. And this one was more, this is the building you see in the center of the site, the larger building. That would be a proposed daycare, excuse me, a daycare type facility. That building's about 12,500 square feet. There would be parking mostly on the west side of the building, so there would be a sort of a separate in and out to go to the daycare. There is a large play area behind the daycare. So people, obviously the vehicle trips to this facility would be heavy in the morning first thing and at the end of the day, and really just during the week. On the weekend, it really would be fairly quiet. And then over on the right side of the site, we were trying to look at options for some smaller retail restaurant type facilities. These happen to be a Burger King is the easterly footprint. And then the one that's just next to that, that is a Starbucks layout. So really the idea on these would be you'd come in over near Taylor Road, opposite Taylor Road, enter to the retail facilities there and come over to the center of the site and exit there. And that way we try to minimize the number of trips that are crossing Central Street and minimize potentials for any conflicts there. So those are really the two layouts that we had to try and sort of maximize the value of the property just based on the fact that they're that close to the highway. And there's an easy off and access is great, and something that would obviously remove the existing buildings, but something that is not currently allowed in the bylaw today.
I stopped sharing, but I can go back if there are questions about those sketches. Annie and Tony, did you want to say some words and introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. I would like to thank you all for letting us be part of the meeting today. I really appreciate it. And yeah.
So I'm Anthony Treforos. I'm new to this, so this is our first development type of property, so we don't, we run the Dairy Queens in the area, so this is what we're trying to do. We like the property and we think we can fix it up.
And it will be a good, it will do good for the town as well. And it's such Berlin is such a great town, and I believe developing this area will be a good contribution.
Okay, thank you. Does any, obviously the board has to digest this and we have a compact schedule, but does any board member have any initial comments or anything they would like to share at this time?
You know I do. But if Jay or Tim wants to go first.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Go ahead.
Hi, Carolyn.
So the portion of the property that you, that you had delineated as conservation. So there's a conservation restriction on that portion of the property that would not allow any of what you're proposing. And I'm kind of wondering what your thoughts on how you might overcome that.
So it's go ahead.
A little history is that when Mr. Cotting owned this property, and he owned all the acreage on top of Sawyer Hill, he put a conservation restriction on a sizable amount of his 400 acres. And on this site, he identified a considerable amount of the land as with a CR, a conservation restriction. And then, and I was trying to recall this when I was talking to Chris the other day, and I haven't looked at the map, but the town has this designation called agricultural recreation conservation. And we voted at a town meeting to zone this particular parcel that's got the CR on it as that zone, agriculture, recreation, conservation. And if we look at the zoning bylaw, residential and commercial uses other than those that are related to agriculture are not allowed.
Mhm.
So where you've placed all your structures on the ARC land, ARC, if you were going to do anything, it would have to be on the portion zone for residential agricultural, the piece to the west of that line. And Chris and I talked about this, and I think we've talked about this with Carolyn too. That CR was recorded, Carolyn?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So a CR, maybe you can talk about a CR. We've only
Right,
got a
so,
couple of minutes, but
so a conservation restriction holds the wishes of the property owner when they put the conservation restriction in place is pretty sacred. You know, with just zoning stuff, you can develop an overlay district, you can have things, a decision made that is different at town meeting if the things that are proposed are different than the zoning allows. But a conservation restriction, the only way that that can be modified or overturned is by a 2/3 vote on the State House floor.
Right.
So it's not a something to be taken lightly. It is not overcome easily. And unless there is a real good reason to even consider it, I don't know that historically conservation restrictions are modified at all at the state level. We
Mhm.
actually just passed some legislation that I think is going to the state Senate. I don't think it's passed all the way yet, but that takes conservation issues out of 40B. So developers can't go filling in wetlands just for a 40B project. So conservation restrictions are taken very seriously. And I hope you knew that the CR was there before you purchased the property.
We wasn't sure. We didn't know about it. We know that it was residential agricultural, but we never heard of the conserve, but no, we did not.
Right.
But I mean, even if though, I think it's still really a good location. It's still a really a good property. So even if, you know, the residential, the plans that we showed to you guys, it's not doable. I think we still want to develop the place because it's, you know, it's a good location, and it's really just whatever you guys want to see in that property.
So do you have a copy of the conservation restriction?
No, I don't.
So
I don't,
Chris, you can get it on the registry of
did.
deeds.
Yeah, Tim told me about it yesterday. I hadn't known about it.
Yeah.
But I did look online today and did not find a book and page. If any of you could forward the book and page, I would be grateful, because then I could show it to Annie and Tony and I could explain, okay,
Yeah.
these are the terms that govern what can be done on this property.
Yeah, and I have a physical copy too that,
Okay.
Jay, did I send you what I had?
Did, yep.
I thought so. I thought I had
I
digitized it. So
forwarded to Annie the information to find our zoning bylaw and the maps and all that also.
okay,
The other
right,
thing,
so,
since we're limited in time, I think we should make sure Annie and Tony understand is that none of our zoning allows multifamily housing. You know, in order to put a multifamily development in place, you have no right to do that. So you have to also go to town meeting and, you know, get the voters all to agree to an overlay I mean, Chris knows a lot about this because he's done it. It's not an easy or quick process. to put something other than a single family home on that property.
Right. And
But it can
possibly
stay a greenhouse,
even,
correct?
pardon?
It can stay a greenhouse, it can stay.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So you could put a single family on the residential portion and a
Okay.
farm stand on the other.
Okay.
It-
What do you, for food trucks, what does Berlin require? Do you guys regulate that, or is that somewhere else?
Wouldn't a food truck be regulated by the Board of Health?
Oh,
Well, yeah, they are. But there's also a question of whether you can operate, that's a business. Can you operate a business in a AR zone? Right?
Well, if it was a regular food truck location, I think that would have zoning implications as well as Board of Health licensing.
Right.
So I think that's a bit of a tricky thing, but Annie and Tony and I can look into that if that's an interest of theirs.
And I have.
and I think I'm gonna have to cut this off right about now because we've
Okay.
bled over into our time that we have published for public hearings. So
Thank you so much.
I encourage you guys to, talk with Chris and Randy and make an appointment to come back and see us. We're more than happy to talk to you and, see what you guys, what you think, what you want, what what we can work with, and encourage you to continue.
Sure. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Chris,
Appreciate it.
I'll email you the digitized copy of the CR that I
Well,
have.
Thank you, Carolyn.
And just know it's a copy of a copy of a copy. So it's not the cleanest you'll see, but
All right.
um,
And
all right.
I'll probably be able to find the original online.
yes.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks so much.
Thank
right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So Jay, I know you, that's everybody.
Okay, so we have scheduled a hearing. And help me out, because we haven't done a hearing in probably a year. So I'm not sure if we're doing the right thing on the Zoom platform or whatever. But anyways, a hearing has been posted for 8 p.m. to discuss the articles the planning board, zoning articles the planning board is proposing at the annual town meeting. And we're going to take them up and discuss them now. We have what is Articles 31 through 36 as printed in the warrant that was sent to everybody's home. So do we need to read all of the text, or can we give the summary?
Well, I was wondering if Carolyn could bring up the warrant from
Perfect, that would
what
be-
Mary sent us. She sent us, or Margaret did, the full text, so we could
Okay.
just bring up those 6 articles.
I can.
Be of many talents.
Mm. And while she's doing that, we had the coffee forum with the select board last Thursday, and everything was pretty much fine. They had no issues with anything that we had written. They liked the fact that we were collaborating with the zoning board of appeals. They encouraged us to continue our dialogues with them.
We don't have any choice, do we?
We always have a choice.
Well, I don't know.
All right. Just have to download it and then open it. Oh, looks like I already had it open. All right.
Well, while she's doing that, the first
All right.
article is Article 31. And this is to change or amend the zoning bylaw, inserting a proper alphabetical order and to the new definitions under Article 14.
Article 31.
Yeah, 31 is the first one. Almost there.
All right.
Jake breaks. Yep, there it is.
Okay.
So these definitions would clean up and amend the existing language that's in the zoning bylaw as it stands.
Jay, I'm going to make you a co-host so you can see if anybody in the audience has their hand up, because I can't share my screen and see that at the same time.
Ah,
Can you see the attendance now?
it's not appearing.
So if
I-
you,
I can see the 6 attendees and no one has their hand raised yet.
okay, all right,
I will
So-
tell you if they do.
okay,
Perfect.
excellent. All right, so that's Article 31.
Article 31. So any hands up, seeing none or hearing none, we'll move on to Article 32. And this is to see if the town will amend the zoning bylaw, Article 14, the definitions of a floor area, and the way it's calculated. This grew out of a discussion that we had with the Zoning Board of Appeals and the building.
Inspector.
Thank you, building inspector. And he's claimed it was cumbersome to deal with the way that we have the current law written, and asked us to make this change to make the calculation less complex.
Just a observation, he is actually the building commissioner.
Commissioner, thank you.
Oh, true. No
Any-
hands?
No hands?
None that I see.
Good, okay. Moving on to Article 33 to see if the town will amend the zoning bylaw, section 540, home-based contracting business. And there's a couple of different additions to the subset. These changes and certain criteria will now need to be met in order to have a home-based contracting business. This cleans up and clarifies some of the ambiguities that exist now. Any hands?
None.
None, okay. Article 34, to see if the town will vote to amend.
Let's, Eloise, raise your hand just so we know it's working.
Oh.
Hey, it works. Okay. So if they do raise their hand, we will know.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Article 34, to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw 1020 noise, deleting the section 1021 general requirements in its entirety, replacing it with the following new 1021 general requirements. There's a couple of things here. The first is 3 objectives. First one was to correct the conflict in the hours of activity. The second was to raise the permissible decibels from 55 to 60, being more in line with what the state has for adoption. And then the last is to provide an exemption for activities that would be permitted by town, presumably the select board, for ongoing events or single-use events. It gives some guidance around that. Any hands? You're muted, but just shake your head.
Yep.
I don't see any.
I
Okay,
think Lynn just raised her hand. I
Oh,
got an,
Lynn did.
yeah.
good. Can you?
Okay. So, well, we're gonna see how this works. So, oh, actually, I can do it. All right. Lynn. Look at that. Lynn Era.
Lynn, you're muted.
Hi, folks.
Hi, Lynn, how are you?
Just a quick question. In this last one, you say that, for which permits have been issued? Who issues the permits?
We're assuming that the select board will be issuing the permits.
Okay, so does that mean if you're gonna have a soccer game, you need a permit?
If you're gonna have a band at the soccer game.
It
Or
says sporting
parade.
event.
Hmm?
It says sporting event.
Hmm. Well, hopefully it's not a noisy sporting event. Perhaps we
You
need to
ever seen
modify
two
that.
teams of 10-year-olds play soccer?
They exceed 60 decibels? I hope not.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Just a comment so that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't
no, it's a
end up
good comment.
having trouble
And
otherwise.
that's why, there's no escape from this as far as I can see.
Tom, someone in the audience named Mary. No last name.
Porter, probably.
Yeah, I think so, but allow her to talk.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Mary, how are you?
I'm doing well. That was a good guess on the last name. Very good. Just Lynn's comment that I just tuned in and I missed the earlier part. I'm toggling between two computers and two Zoom meetings right now, but the decibel levels in this, I did some reading on sound and decibel levels, and human speech is around 55. So I don't know whether the planning board would consider adding 10 decibels or something to those numbers. And again, to Lynn's comment, child's game, a soccer game or whatever, a backyard barbecue, if, human voice is at 55, we're going to have trouble with, it isn't that I don't think sound at those levels are really problematic. The problem is town officials might be asked to come out and have to deal with this situation. And what are we doing to our town employees who have to respond to complaints when we have decibel levels that are, in the range of human speech?
Right.
So, I mean, you can look this stuff up. You don't have to take me as an authority. I did some research. I looked it up. But, at this hearing tonight, I'd like to suggest to the board that we consider moving those decibels up to maybe, see, that dog is probably 70, okay?
Probably more than that.
Whatever, but to consider, where did we land on this? Was it 50 and 60? Consider to boost those to, 70, where are we? Can
50 and
somebody,
60.
the 50 and 60, can somebody move up to that top part of the, yeah, thank you, yeah, right. So if the daytime were at 70 and the nighttime, I mean, you could leave it at 50, but you might want to think about 55. And my thought is really, is this going to be manageable for the town to enforce this if those numbers are where they are now? I think it's really asking a lot. And particularly the comment about, a game, a sporting event, or just a lot of things that really aren't objectionable from a noise standpoint.
So the point right now is that presently it's at 55.
Right.
And it's a bylaw that exists. So the options are eliminate the bylaw altogether and not have a zoning bylaw that deals with noise. And at some point in the future, put a noise bylaw into the general bylaws. And I mean, in this case, it has to be enforced by the zoning commissioner, which is not going to happen. That's the problem. So there is a bylaw in existence. It says 55. If we want to change it, if you look at some towns, they say measure ambient and go 10 decibels above ambient. Well, the building commissioner went to Coburn Road and took a measure for ambient, and cars go by and you're above 10%, the 10 decibel levels above ambient. So it's a frustrating situation. The main objective, I think, that the planning board was trying to assist with was through the addition of number F or whatever it is, which gives protection to activities that are going to make way more noise than 60 or even 70. But the process would be going through the select board. So I think Lynn's question is appropriate. I mean, does the rec committee come in and say, we want a blanket permit to have sporting events on South Common for the season? Select board says yes, and go ahead. 19 Carter wants to have concerts for the season. They come in and request a permit from the selectmen to have events. And then the protection's there. That was our objective. So massaging it or tweaking it here and there probably doesn't resolve the ultimate problem. You're going to exceed 70 decibels probably in a lot of cases. So that number doesn't accomplish a hell of a lot. But do we simply modify this at town meeting? Someone stands up and makes a motion that just includes the elimination of the bylaw and deletes everything else. Somebody could make that motion. But then if somebody wants to complain about noise, there is no standard to live by. So, that's our dilemma.
The other complication is the levels really don't reflect the annoyance of the noise. The type of noise matters a lot.
Right.
Right. If you have a barking dog next door and maybe it's only 50 dBA, it may drive you crazy. Whereas, the wind can be blowing and it can be 70 dBA, and it doesn't bother you at all. So I think, I agree, Tim. I think it's a matter of having something, because the way normally there are a lot of bylaws and regulations in town that are only enforced when there's a problem, when somebody complains. And you kind of need to have that to fall back on, so you have a tool to be able to enforce when there's a problem that really is objectionable. I mean, you can't expect, the building commissioner to go out and arrest everyone that's speaking in their backyard over 50 dB. But if you got a neighbor, something really is offensive, whether it's the sound level or the type of noise or whatever, he's got a tool to be able to use to enforce it.
Right. And if I'm reading this correctly, the limitations shall not apply to, skip down to F, sounds emitted during and associated with parades, public gatherings, sporting concerts, or sporting events, for which permits have been issued. So like Tim said, the select board once says all public school sporting events are permitted in perpetuity or whatever, I mean, there is a way to get around that. So
I don't know whether I'm still active here, Carolyn, but
you are.
You are,
Okay.
we can hear you, Mary.
yeah, thank you. One of the things in my reading on this topic is that Massachusetts has some regulation in place that's underneath the auspices of the DEP. And so that rolls down to Neshoba Board of Health, Berlin Board of Health, with the enforcement officer being the police. And that's where we would be if the town had no dedicated particular sort of regulation like we're looking at here. So what I'm hearing as I listen to people on the planning board is that our zoning, our housing commissioner ends up being the enforcement officer here, and it's the administrative burden to him and others that's a consideration. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I think the section F is a good fix. Yeah, I mean, you guys fixed the inherent inconsistency in the two day and nighttime decibel levels that are in our existing zoning bylaw. But and I don't know what you said, Tim, that's a possibility that this whole matter is taken out of zoning and put into a general bylaw. Then it would flow with how Massachusetts organizes it. And my recollection, working from memory, which is not that good, but is that in Massachusetts, it's a certain decibel level over ambient. And the reason it's under DEP is noise is considered air pollution.
Yeah, and that's what I recall. And the difficulty with that definition is that it doesn't even get you to 60, and from what we discovered with the building inspector's effort. So
this is a hard problem. I don't envy you.
well, I mean, when I talked to town council, we sort of chuckled and said, what do you find? And she says, towns run away from this as fast as they can. It's so our objective was to try to create a process by which certain events could have a certain level of protection. And Lynn's question is appropriate. I mean, maybe you want to take sporting events out of this completely. But I think in a lot of cases, the selectmen being able to issue a permit for a series of activities or a single event does mean that the opportunity is there for someone to say, I've got a permit and I can, operate between these hours and I'm safe.
We actually put sporting events in there specifically for when Maplewood comes online for their horse shows.
Huh.
If I remember correctly.
Right?
We weren't sure what kind of noise level was going to happen with that.
Well, you know, and in paragraph F, I think you guys did a good job of addressing as best can be done the issues that are on the table here. In paragraph F, you might consider just talking about sounds emitted during and associated with public gatherings and not enumerate what they are. So that doesn't specifically call out a sporting event, and people might not generally think that that's something you go to the town and complain about, right? But I really wanted to tune in tonight on the decibel levels, because I think that no matter who ends up enforcing this kind of thing in the town or interpreting it, I think those levels are a bit low for the realities of what our day-to-day activities, the noise that we generate, the speech and so on. I think they're just, and I know other towns have picked those levels. And maybe that's just so that people in the town enforcing can go after something even at the, at a lower level. But
well, Mary, no, this is at the lot line, right? So speech when you're right
Yes.
next to someone is one level, but sound diminishes as distance increases, right?
that's right. That's right.
Depends on which way the wind's blowing.
That's true. too.
Yeah, it's a very, that the science of sound is very complex. So
Absolutely. That's why I don't think we could ever engineer a bylaw that really worked as written, because there's so many different types of sound, and some are offensive and some aren't. So the question is just, we kind of have a placeholder here that gives you a chance to someone to use as a tool when they're being annoyed, and then there has to be a judgment call on whether it's reasonable or not.
Tom, you see,
Lynn, you have a comment?
Yeah, I think you should go with what you have. Again, it's never going to be perfect. It does resolve the one or two issues that have been before us about this type of a situation. I don't know of any neighbors that are calling and complaining about the party their neighbor had next door, because if their neighbor next door is wise enough, they invite them.
Exactly.
So I think this is an improvement. I think you need it because there are certain folks that may be having a public gathering or a concert, and they need the protection of a permit.
Got it.
So I think you should go with what you have, but that's just my take.
Is it too late to include weddings, at least for this year?
trying to get out of something, Jay? Right. And as Tim said, if over the next year where there's a part or a couple of parts that we really feel like need to be modified, we can modify just those things
Right.
in the future.
Or as Mary was saying, just get it out of the zoning bylaw
Altogether.
entirely and work with town council. I mean, she said she'd work with us, but she said it's not an easy one. It's a tough one. So,
Well, we debated whether it belonged in zoning anyways.
yeah.
Well, as a coincidence, there's what was brought before us last week, Lynn, right, was the contractor activity at the mall, where the abutters were concerned about sound. And there's a case where they're pretty far away from the parking lot, but the noise they're likely to hear is the backup alarm on a loader.
Mhm.
Safety.
May not be over 50 dBA at their house, but it's designed to be really annoying so that you'll hear it and you won't get run over.
Yeah, try living behind Cabela's.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you
that-
you've already eliminated emergency vehicles or emergency signals or emergency alerts. So I
Right.
think that would be covered by the backup bell for the truck.
No, I don't know about that.
Right. But it's still, to Jay's point, it's still annoying. Whether it's allowed or not, it's still annoying.
Right. So the
Um,
DBA in that case really
Right,
doesn't solve the problem because it's so annoying.
right. But my neighbor could sit out on Sunday mornings in their backyard and play a flute. That would be louder, but would be lovely. So
Maybe.
If
Yeah,
they know
well,
how to
You have
play.
to tell them over and over and over again.
they might be outside because they got kicked out of the house, but
So I shouldn't, Jay, thank you, number one, for attending the ZBA meeting. But I shouldn't bring up that under the definition of contractor, are you, contractor yard, are you sure that covers what we want it to cover? I was gonna skip over this. And it's only allowed in an LI and you don't allow residences in LIs. So it wouldn't be an occupant, I wouldn't think, but just take a second look at that and see if you feel it covers what's going on at the mall, or may go on at the mall, or may not go on at the mall.
Yeah, I mean, that's in an overlay district, right? Isn't
Yeah,
that?
that's overlay.
Oh, that's not how
We
the
were gonna talk about-
CBA got stuck with it. We were told it's the underlying district, which is LI. Right, Tim?
That's right.
We were
But-
actually going to talk about that at the end of our meeting in the timely items for consideration.
Right. You've made us feel guilty about that decision, at least me anyway. So
Oh, I'm so glad.
it worked. So
And there's
are we gonna talk
numbers.
about this afterwards? And
Yeah.
we'll move on from
Yeah,
now?
move on, please. So we're going to leave the noise as it is. I go forward with it.
Yeah.
Okay, any other hands up or anybody else want to make a comment before we move on? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna go to Article 35 to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw, section 340, table use, accessory use regulations by deleting the current list titled home occupation and replacing it with the following. So in the residential agricultural zone, you need a SR. Correct? Any?
Yep.
Anybody got their hand raised or anybody want to make a comment on this?
no hands.
No hands. Fantastic. We're moving on. Article 36. Non-conforming uses and structures, deleting the current text in its entirety, replacing with the following. Article 11, non-conforming uses and structures, applicability, non-conforming uses in the residential agricultural, extensions, alterations to existing structures. This will further explain the non-conforming use and the non-conforming structures and how they're treated. And clarify non-conforming uses in residential agricultural zones may not be extended, altered, or changed. Any comments? Any hand raised?
I don't see any.
Good.
And the residential. All right,
Excellent. So at this point in time, I will entertain. Nobody else has any comments or no one other has any penetrating insights. I will entertain a motion to close this hearing.
I move that we close the hearing.
second,
I got a motion and a second to close the hearing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask you to vote to close the hearing. Carolyn McDonald,
aye.
Timothy Wheeler,
Aye.
Jay Teach,
Aye.
and Tom Sanford, aye. Thank you. The hearing is closed. Does the board want to, we have a few minutes before our next contestant. Does the board want to vote on whether we want to send these motions to town meeting, or do we want to take a vote the day before town meeting, or at town meeting earlier, or how do we want to do this?
I move that we support Articles 32, 33, 35, and 36.
Hold on.
Did you mean to skip 34?
And 31,
So
And 34.
31,
just
30
for now. That's noise in the contractor yard, right?
The 31 has the contractor yard.
Yeah, so 32, 33, 35, and 36. Just to get those out of the way.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to support Articles 32, 33, 35, and 36. Any discussion, any penetrating insights? Seeing none, I'll ask you to vote to support those following articles. Carolyn McDonald,
Aye.
Timothy Wheeler,
Aye.
and Jay Teach.
Aye.
Tom Sanford, aye. Okay, those we agree on. We're going to push forward to town meeting. How about, you want to discuss 31 and 34 at this point or not?
Well, we got a couple minutes, right?
We do.
Um,
Yeah. You have 5 minutes.
Alan, do you want to pull up 31 again? I want to think about what Lynn was asking. She's, as usual, throwing us a curve here, so. Lynn, explain to us again why you're asking us if we're happy with the language. So what are we looking at?
In what districts do you want a contractor's yard to be able to be?
Well, let's look.
Because right now, the only one is in LI.
I see. So if
mean,
we
we
don't
didn't-
specify, are you saying if we don't specify, someone could argue that it's allowed elsewhere?
No, I'm saying that it shouldn't be allowed anywhere else according to the bylaw. Therefore, you're talking about used by the owner or occupant. Well, there shouldn't be any occupant there at all.
Good.
Right?
Good catch.
And the owner of the premises or on behalf of a contractor stored for use off-site. So
Well,
you're
wait a minute
saying-
now, because, so I own the property. I'm Simon. I'm not Simon anymore. I'm someone else. Or the occupant is the one who leases the property for use for the contractor's yard. Is that the way I interpret that?
Well, I'm taking it on behalf of the contractor, so the owner does it on behalf of the contractor.
But does occupant simply mean the person that's occupying it is a contractor's yard, even though they don't own it? You're
Yeah,
looking
a
at
tenant.
occupant as someone who
If you-
lives there?
If you rent a space, you are the occupant.
Right. I don't think that implies that you live there, Lynn, does it?
Okay, if you don't think it does, I'll take your word for it.
Well, you're going to interpret it. That's the way I look at it. So I'd say resident might mean I live there. Occupant means I occupy the space.
Okay,
I guess that's the way I'd look at it.
so it's only allowed in an LI district, so we aren't gonna run into problems anywhere else.
Right.
And it's for machinery, supplies, materials, or components. They can repair equipment there too, right?
Repair of equipment, yeah.
Yep.
Or components used by the
By.
owner or occupant.
Right.
So that would either be, let's say, in the case of the mall, Solomon Pond Mall, or the occupant you're saying would be the contractor who's gonna have his yard there.
Right. So he can repair his equipment on that site if he leases it from the Solomon Pond Mall folks. But to me, that does not say he can set up a repair shop for equipment that belongs to others.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, that doesn't look, I'm glad you asked your questions because I feel more confident about it now than I even did before. So
well, it's better than waiting till town meeting, right?
I love you when you ask
Absolutely.
us ahead of time, Lynn.
So do you want a motion to accept
I'll-
Article 31?
I'll move that we accept Article 31. Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to support Article 31 to the town meeting next week. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask you to vote. Carolyn McDonald,
Aye.
Jay Teach,
Hey,
Tim Wheeler,
Aye.
and Tom Sanford, aye. Motion carries. Thank you. So next, we have one more minute. Do we have enough time to take up the noise or do we wait?
My clock is going to change. It just changed.
No, okay, then
Right.
we need
We'll
to.
come back.
We'll come back to that one. Okay. So. The next.
Nice job. Nice
item-
hearing.
Next item on the agenda is continued discussion with our friends from CMRPC. Are they on?
Yeah, sorry, Emily's here. She's here twice, so I think she did that
We did that
before.
Before, that's correct.
Yeah, so I'm gonna promote both.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Emily, how are you?
Hi.
I'm great. Thank you for letting me join on both. My internet's been a little unreliable today, so I just wanted to make sure I don't drop out in the middle of the meeting. So,
Okay,
perfect.
I wanted to just recognize that Eloise is here, Evie is here, and Logan, who lives at Riverbridge and is new to town relatively, is also in the audience and he showed an interest in listening in on these conversations. And if he raises his hand, or Evie does, or Eloise, we may very well hear from them. So I just wanted to say they were
Absolutely.
here.
welcome all.
Yes.
Thank you for attending. Okay, Emily, the show is
All right.
yours.
I'll take it away.
Thank you.
So it looks like we're going to be launching the survey next week at town meeting, if that's still the plan. So I incorporated the feedback that I had gotten, the comments from everyone last week, and a few had sent some stuff via email. So I just want to go over the survey one more time, probably vote on it, get everyone's approval to launch it next week. I had also put together like a flyer that can be handed out at town meeting or other places in town. So I just want to review that too and get feedback on that. So how does that sound to start with? Because I have also two versions of the survey, same questions, but one is going to be the online version that people will take on phones and iPads and computers, and one will be like a printed version, which I really condensed into, I think it was like 5 or 6 pages. So we can go through the online version, I guess, if that sounds good.
Can we start with the flyer first?
Yeah, we can definitely start with the flyer.
Then we can take the vote on that.
Sure, sounds good. Gonna share my screen for that. There we go. So we've got the QR code in there, the link, some grabbing language to get people, give people a sense of what the survey is going to be asking, and just locations where people can pick it up if they prefer to take a hard copy survey. I think it was Evie had told me to replace town hall with town offices, because I guess there's a different building that is called town hall.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay, so I'll replace that. And if it says that in the survey as well, I'll also change that out.
How do we feel about this?
I think it looks awesome.
I
And
do too.
this is going to be put up around places.
Yep. So this size is kind of like a postcard size or like a half-page size. So I was thinking this is something really easy to hand out. I can also frame it to be like a 8.5 by 11, which would be easier to post places too. So I can kind of have 2 versions of that.
So if we had them, I don't even know if we have time to have them printed and handed out for Monday. Is that possible?
That's my plan. Yeah.
Okay.
So my colleague Sarah has been helping me out with that. So she's going to print them out at our offices, and then just let me know where she should drop them off. Meet someone at town hall, or I don't know what's the best place to get it to you guys before town meeting.
She
Also
could
let me
drop 'em-
know.
She could drop them here because we're around, and
Okay.
then I could just bring them up if you want.
That would be helpful, Tim, if you don't mind.
No, because I mean, none of us are at the town offices, so.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So are we happy with the format and the way this looks to be able to go to a printer?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that change that Evie suggested makes sense. And then other than that, I think it looks great.
Okay. Jay, you're okay with it?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. So why don't we'll formalize this. Why don't we take a vote for having this printed out and using it as a handout for town meeting on Monday?
I make that motion.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. No other discussion. I'll ask you to vote. Carolyn McDonald,
Aye.
Jay Teach,
I,
and Tim Wheeler,
aye.
and Tom Sanford, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So if you'll take care of the changes in the printing, Emily, will be most appreciated.
Perfect. I was just wondering how many copies you think I should print out.
That's a good one.
I don't know how many people usually show up to town meeting or.
Between 200 and 400.
Yeah,
How's that?
We can go for
Oh,
400.
El-
Yeah.
Eloise would like to maybe answer that. Eloise, I think you should be good. Yeah, you're muted.
How is that now?
Good.
Okay, I don't know about the number, but if there are any left over, we will take them and make them available for the town election the following week.
perfect.
Because you sometimes get people who go to an election that would not go to a town meeting.
Perfect.
Perfect, okay. So maybe we should do a 500 print run.
That sounds good. We can also
Yeah.
just leave them like at the library or somewhere for
Yeah,
people to
let's
take.
let's
Right.
do 500.
Okay. All right.
Perfect, thank you.
Do we want to move on to the survey now?
Yes, please.
So Emily, how many times can I take the survey?
I think it depends on like, what's it called? Like your IP address. So you can't take it on the same computer.
Okay, good. That's what I was,
But if you
Good.
have a phone and an iPad and a computer, technically you
Okay.
can take it that many times.
all right, good.
Are you
That
planning
helps.
on stuffing the ballot?
No, I was just trying to figure out how overloaded you could get potentially. Not that I think people are going to do that. It's just I wondered technically how that works, but that's good to know. Great.
Call you James Michael Curley.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think I made really any changes to the introduction. Yeah, I think this is all the same. I added a potential like day to close the survey. I think this was, yeah, about 6 weeks out. Any thoughts on if that's a good time to close it? Should it be shorter, longer? So for folks who can't see, it's Friday, June 10th.
I think that's a workable, because if we can take our temperature at like the end of May, and if Jay and I have to get down and go to the soccer games and hand out the remaining flyers or something like that, it's a possibility that we can do a little blitz at the end to see if we can increase the numbers. If it's just, if it's really horrible by Memorial Day.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that extending it much longer, much
Right.
past that, because,
You're gonna
as it
get
is.
into, you're gonna get into vacation time frame and
Yep.
people kind of check out.
Yeah, typically we get the most responses like when a survey launches,
Mhm.
and then it kind of dwindles afterwards. So this is a really important time to get the word out.
Right.
Okay, so we'll keep it for Friday, June 10th for now. All right. So previously we had more of the demographic questions at the beginning here, but I moved those to the end. This one was the first one was it could be a demographic question, but I decided to keep it in. I think it's important to know why people reside here, and then if they intend to. That kind of segues into what if they choose to stay in town, if it's possible for them, it's affordable. All right, so that's the first section on the current residents.
Mhm.
Just keep moving forward. Then we get into the housing affordability questions. Yeah, really didn't change much for these. I don't think at all. I think there was a question about what's your household income, and I decided to move that to the demographics section.
Okay.
I added a link here to the CPA website. So for people who aren't familiar with CPA, can check that out.
I really appreciate that question being in there. That's going to help us. And it'll help the housing trust folks if we get one established. That's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and these options, I just took these from what other communities in Massachusetts have used with CPA funds.
Yep. Oh, that's great.
That was a top 3 one. What was the? Choose your top 3.
No, that's the one before is top 3.
Right.
Up,
You
higher
can
up,
choose as
yeah.
many as you want.
So you don't have to make a choice about making trade-offs, though. I mean, you can check them all off.
You could.
Yeah, that's a good question. What do you think, Emily? Or anybody else? I mean, is there value in just having them restricted to the, instead of checking everything?
Ranking them.
Do we get some
That's the best thing.
clear idea of what people are after if we just limit them to 3?
It could go either way. Yeah.
I think this question is very broad, so I'd go up to 5.
Okay,
People number them by preference.
yeah.
If you make them rank them, that's even better because
Yes.
trade-offs.
Right.
Now, if they
Right.
rank them, Emily, is that gonna,
Gonna
can you
change
handle
everything.
that?
Like, so technically SurveyMonkey can do that, but I've noticed a lot of people kind of get confused with the ranking, the way it gets set up, and people will just tend to skip the question. So I'd prefer to just do select your top 5.
That doesn't scare
Agreed.
them away as much, probably. Okay.
Yeah, it's a
And
lot
you-
easier.
You can make it so that they can't check more than 5.
That I'm not sure if I can do on SurveyMonkey. That we might have to just hope that people only select up to 5.
Hope that people count.
Hope so. Yep. I can double check to see if they've done any updates to SurveyMonkey to do that, but last time I checked and tried to do that, it wouldn't let me. But I'll see if I can do that. Otherwise, just write in select your top 5.
Great.
Okay. All right, and then we've got the demographics questions at the end.
It only goes to 20+ years. We're going to get all these responses from newcomers.
Let's see here. Is there something you'd want to add to it?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Most of us in town have lived here at least 20 years, right?
Most of us sitting here, yes, but
Exactly.
City folk that keeps moving out.
Well, Berlin, when we looked at the 40 towns in the Planning Commission's region, only West Brookfield had a higher, older mean age, I guess, than Berlin. And given the fact they're on the western part of the county and we were on the eastern along 495, it wasn't intuitive that you'd assume that. So it'll be interesting to see who responds to this,
Hmm.
given what we know about the breakdown of age. Now,
know,
it may have, I assume it's changed to some degree because of Riverbridge now, and I was looking at age breakdown there, and it is a younger demographic than we see in general in other parts of town. So, but it'll be interesting to see if, do you find, Emily, that older citizens tend to fill out surveys? Or is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it tends to skew that way. I would
Right.
say like age 50 plus.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, we can definitely take steps to try to target other age groups too. If there's like parents of school age children or, yeah, try to brainstorm
Right,
that.
we could probably get the flyers put in backpacks at the school too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Gonna need more flyers.
yeah.
Tom and I can go to the sporting events where all the kids are playing.
Right.
Yeah, but I know that they do, I think it's weekly. Their kids get a packet of whatever information needs to be sent home to parents. And I know you can put stuff about town things in that handout.
Great idea.
And so we got, what, 220 kids
Just about.
at Berlin Memorial?
Or you could ask them to send out this as a Survey Monkey.
Right, well, if we send the postcards, then the parents
Yeah,
can
but
just,
it's a lot cheaper to send out this than have the postcards printed.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
so how would we send this out? Like, just,
Go ahead.
You mean the school sends something out electronically, Eloise,
Yeah,
on a
Oh.
weekly basis, or?
I don't know, but I have to go down and do a posting so I can ask them.
Good
Yeah.
idea, because we'll get it on their phones and then they can immediately fill the survey out on their phone.
exactly,
Right.
yeah.
Paper.
Or Julie Lee's on the school committee.
This is getting scary. We may be fun to get 40% of the population.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Well, and like you say, Tom, the fact that we can sort of monitor it, and if we feel like we're lagging after that first shot, we can make another push.
Yep.
Yeah.
As the deadline is approaching, that's a great time to get people motivated.
Yeah.
And could you remind them to send in their census
Get their dog's license,
and license their dogs? Thank you.
pay their taxes.
I like it. This is great.
Great. All right, so we got to the end of the survey here. So, also last week last meeting, we had talked about which link to add here. So I just added the planning board link and the housing partnership link.
Now, you know,
Awesome.
the best way, I bet Emily knows this, the best way to get people to fill out a survey is,
Give 'em
Instagram.
$5.
or
Hmm,
a reward. I
a
remember
reward.
getting surveys where they sent me $1, and it's such a trivial amount of money, but I felt so guilty keeping it and not filling out the survey. We can give you a 10% discount on your taxes if you fill out the survey.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We'll go down to the fields with the food truck. And you get a hot dog if you fill out the survey.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, we could incorporate like a gift card or something. Because for the people who like submit their emails too, that would also encourage people to submit their emails and sign up for any
Mhm.
updates for this plan. And then I could do like a random generator to select a lucky winner.
maybe we can get some of the businesses and sponsors of that to donate something. We got a lot of horse manure and people need it for their gardens.
Yeah, if they're crazy. Yeah.
You could do 5 $25 gift cards up at Market Basket
Or the store in town.
or the store in town. I didn't know if they did gift cards there.
Yeah, I've done that.
Have you?
The one question did we have something in the text in the intro, in the past that said something about the creation of a housing trust?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Should we include that?
Well, did you write something somewhere that talked about that being part of our overall discussion? And I don't think I mean, I thought I read something early on, but I didn't see it this time, and I thought, do we need it? That was the first question. And if we do, where would we slip a sentence in here somewhere that just said, the housing production plan combines the master plan to, and there is this article, there is an article on the warrant to create a housing trust, and the goal of the housing trust is to assist with some of these objectives that are in the housing production plan and in the master plan. I don't know. Yeah. We don't need it in this, because at town meeting, we'll talk about it there at town meeting. We'll just do it that way. I don't think it adds to the survey, and it doesn't necessarily help or hinder the development of the housing trust. So I think we're fine.
Do we want to look at the print version of it too, just quickly?
Sure.
There it is. All right. So pretty much the same, just a little more condensed. If people happen to have a print survey, but they decide they don't want to write it out, they can just pull up the link on their phone. Yep. And that's it, 6 pages.
Excellent.
Awesome. All right. So survey's looking good. Do folks want to take a vote on it to launch it? Or any other input?
Yeah, I'll move that we move forward with this proposal and put the good spin on it at town meeting to get it started.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go forward with these 2 surveys. Is there any further discussion, comments, penetrating insights? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask you to vote. Timothy Wheeler.
Aye.
Jay Teach.
Aye.
Carolyn McDonald.
Aye.
And Tom Sanford, aye. Excellent. Motion carries.
Great. Okay, stop sharing.
So what's your sense, Tom? We have somebody meet and greet as people are coming in that corridor and say here?
Yeah, possibly. I think that's probably the best bet.
I mean, I'd be willing to stand out there for a stretch. I don't,
Yeah,
Well, we
Oh,
have a
do we have a
CPA, a quick CPA meeting.
we may.
so correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we legally can stand in the corridor, right?
We'll ask Eloise.
Eloise, do we have if we run into an issue, will we run into an issue if we stand in the corridor and hand out these flyers?
I would strongly suggest you stand down the door where they enter.
Right.
Doorway, okay.
Yeah.
But we can be in the building, right? We don't have to be
Sure.
outside? Okay,
No. I can designate you assistant town clerks.
wow.
For
I just
good
don't know
or-
if I can put a time limit for 15.
Yeah.
There's no special town meeting, right, Eloise?
I hope not.
I mean, there's no meeting before the
Pre-meeting.
regular meeting.
No, but they're starting the regular meeting at 6:30. Normally, in the past, it started at 7:30.
So the regular meeting's going to start at 6:30.
Oh, okay.
So Carolyn and I are going to have so Carolyn, we should schedule CPA at 6, just in case we need it, right?
Yep. I
And
don't think we will, but
no, but then we've got that holder.
Right.
And if it was done by, and that won't take any time, and then we can head back to the front door,
right.
or I can.
I'll help.
Cell phone service inside the auditorium.
Good.
It's usually good.
Yeah.
People who, while they're waiting, when they come in early, they could be filling out the survey while they're sitting waiting.
Yep.
Great. But it's only a couple hundred people out of 3,400 or something, right?
Yeah.
What do you got registered voters now, Eloise? 24?
No, it's 26 and change.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
Oh,
And
Right before I came in, it was 1,500 registered voters.
wow.
And then we've got about 800 kids.
Yeah.
Great.
Eloise, you're an influencer. When you joined, everybody wanted to follow. Are there any, it's funny, the town meetings, there's a group that always come, and then when there's something of interest to another particular group, they come, like when we had the recreation committee had a bunch of stuff they wanted last time. There were
Yeah.
a whole bunch of, looked like younger parents that showed up that were not usually there. Do we
usually
ever
it happens.
track unusual demographics this time?
Well, the wetlands protection bylaw drew a crowd.
Right.
A specific crowd.
Half the crowd disappeared when it was done. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that happens all the time. I mean,
There's-
when the school committee has whatever specials they put on,
Yeah.
as soon as that's done, a third of the crowd gets up and leaves.
but
'Cause
there's
the pa-
nothing on this warrant that really merits that kind of focus for a particular interest group, is there?
I don't think so, but I'm so immersed in it, I often don't see it.
Yeah. I don't, but there's,
Tom, Evie has her hand up.
Correct. Okay, Evie?
Hi, everybody.
you?
Just a quick question. Excellent work on everything, the public hearing and Emily's work. Just wondering when the surveys would be ready. Will they also be ready next week?
Yeah, I plan to have them ready, like the print copies, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I plan to have them ready for next week too. So my plan was to have my colleague Sarah help me out with the printing of the flyers, printing of the surveys, and any collection boxes to be put out at the 3 locations.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think it may be pretty important that we get a good response from people who don't go to town meeting to balance this all out.
Yeah.
Well, if we tell them we're gonna have surveys about housing for the housing production plan, they'll all come to town meeting.
That's 6:30.
Yeah, do we want to talk about like strategy outreach a little bit? Like, are there any Facebook pages? I know we touched on this a little bit at the last meeting, but yeah, any town
Facebook page.
Facebook?
Right, there is a Facebook page, and I'm happy to post it on there for you. I don't find that to be particularly productive, but you know, even if we get a couple, I can
Are
certainly
there
do
any?
that.
Okay, yeah, I'll send you like the link and the a like picture image
And
that you can share of the flyer. Yeah.
Right, and actually the town, we can also send to Mary, and Mary, because this isn't political, we can have Mary post it on the Town of Berlin page, as well as Berlin Neighbors Connect.
Oh, the town of Berlin has a Facebook page?
The
Yeah.
Berlin Police has one, Town of Berlin has one.
Wow.
Yep.
There's a electronic sign in the center of town now. I noticed it's been there for quite a while.
Yeah, we can use that too.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep, that's the highway department. You have to get in touch with the highway department and tell them what you want.
So something I saw today is actually very relevant. I was driving through Clinton, and as you're coming out of town to the north, there's a building that I think was an auto repair shop on the right at a corner, kind of right on the edge of town, of the edge of the center of town, right? And there's a giant sign on there saying, hey, what would you like to see here? Send your ideas to, and a email address.
Huh.
Caught my attention. If I lived in Clinton, I'd probably send something in.
Hmm.
Something equestrian, obviously, but
Right in downtown Clinton.
Horse lanes.
Yep.
a really noticeable town sign, maybe in the town center or something, that we got to have an easy webpage address for people to find. Can't be, you know, a lot of letters. It's got to be something real short.
Right.
Move forward. That might get some people's attention. And these days, everybody, you know, plays on their phone while they're driving, so they could do the survey while they're driving.
There you go. Something we want to encourage.
Exactly.
But I think we can
25
probably
miles an
put
hour.
something on the town webpage also.
But whoever, I've never been to the
You've never been to the
well,
town
yeah, I've been to the
webpage?
town webpage, unless there's a very specific reason. I don't think people are constantly checking out what's on. the town.
Cable bulletin,
Powder
Say
House
that again,
News.
Eloise?
cable bulletin.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and then the Powder House News.
Yep.
Yeah, they're always looking for things to fill that.
Yeah, I think they had one just go out, I think, so.
Right. I was gonna say, aren't they bi-monthly?
So, yeah, I'll talk to Bob Blair about including it in the next one they do.
Which
thought
I
that came with
bet,
tax bills or something.
right. I bet will come out after the June 10th deadline.
No,
Well,
I
maybe
don't
we
think
can
so.
submit the survey results.
Right.
What do you think about getting a big sign made up that we could hang on the front lawn of the church for, you know, the
12 square feet, I'm sorry.
I bet we could vote to make an exception.
Nice.
You put it on the side of your food truck as you're driving around town.
Jay, do you have a food truck now?
I
No,
encourage him to get one so he can sell hot dogs at the sunset every night, but
well,
he
actually,
doesn't
Oh.
want all the trash.
we do a food truck that comes to our shows, and by coincidence, he's a hot dog guy, even though he does other stuff.
I see. Yeah. If we're gonna do food at the sunset, let's do something nicer than hot dogs. At least do tacos.
Gourmet. Yeah.
I
Good.
guess, yeah.
Are we all set?
I think so. This is great. Yeah. When should we have a check-in at some point in the next 6 weeks so I can update everyone on the results and maybe re-strategize if we're not getting the numbers we anticipate?
Sure. So our next meeting is
May 10th.
The deadline was June 10th or July 10th?
June.
June.
10th, okay. So I think that we have a meeting on the 24th of May, right? So that's 2 weeks.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because I do think that the time to really push on it is when the deadline's approaching, because everybody responds to deadlines.
Mhm.
Maybe, if Emily says we're only getting 10% of the town or something, we can come up with some more aggressive.
Does that work for you, Emily, the 24th?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. At 8?
Sure. Yep.
While we have Logan, is there a way that we can capture some of the Riverbridge crowd? You've got a clubhouse or something down there that we might utilize?
Yeah, there's a clubhouse that has, basically a main mail room that something could be hung up in. Otherwise, everyone's mailboxes are right there. So if there was a way to put them in the mailboxes, then I think more people would see them.
I don't think you can put them in the mailboxes without mailing them. But is there a table or something that you could stack some on?
Yeah, there's definitely a little side table in there.
And we could do that at Brook Lane too.
Yep.
And we could do it at Sawyer Hill LLC. Because you got 65 units at Brook Lane, 65 units at Camelot and Mosaic. And
Mosaic, yep.
you've got whatever, then you've got the 2 blocks at Northbrook 1 and 2. We can put them in the community building there. But that's
I'm at the store. And I know the executive director of 19 Carter. I would get her to put some there.
and the stand opens on May 1st, so we could throw some in the stand. Although no one from Berlin comes to the stand, it's mostly people from out of town.
You know what you could do instead of just leaving the flyers in the mailroom? The manager here does sometimes send out mass emails to all people in their apartments. So you could just have them send the link that way.
Oh, there you go.
That would work.
So we could supply you with that, and then you could supply it with the manager?
Yeah, I can always ask him.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think the mailing from the school is really important. I mean, we could do the same thing at Tohono.
Yeah, I don't think Tohoto hands out stuff, but they might do some sort of email. I don't know. It's been a little while since I've had a kid up there.
I wonder who would volunteer to check that one out.
Julie would definitely know.
Julie Lee, yeah.
Yeah.
This is great. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I'll send out a summary email like I did before, just with the link and the final flyer, just so people can have an electronic version of that if you want to, for whatever reason, pass it, email it along or print it out yourself or something. Do that this week. And I think that's it on my end.
Any other questions for Emily before she goes?
Just, Emily, just let me know when you want to deliver. And we can set up a time.
Okay. Is sometime, so town meeting is on Monday, correct? Monday night?
Correct.
Okay, so perhaps Monday morning or afternoon?
Mhm.
That work? Okay, that was probably the idea. All right.
Great.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your input. This has been great.
Thanks, Emily.
All right,
Thank you.
I'll see you all on the 24th.
Okay.
Great.
All
Thanks.
right.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Yep, thanks. Bye.
Right. All righty. So we
And
wanted. Hmm?
Thanks to Mary and Logan and Evie and Eloise and Lynn too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we had, there was two things that we wanted to talk about, well, three now, because we wanted to go back to the noise. Let's go back to the noise.
Hold on, Eloise has
Raise your hand.
raised her hand again.
Are you going, you had said tonight you would decide who was gonna talk
That-
to the,
Correct. Why don't we take up that next while you're still here? Eloise had asked me who was going to read the article for doing the
housing trust.
housing trust.
I can do that one.
Thank you.
Okay,
Is that all right?
that's fine.
I think that makes sense too, because you can speak to the importance of it from the CPA standpoint as well.
Right.
Perfect, that works. All right, that gets that one off of the agenda. So do we want to go back to the noise?
Yes.
We haven't done anything with that. So the noise part of the bylaw, Article 34. Do we want to vote to support this at town meeting, or do we want to make changes, or what do we want to do?
I think it's good. We spent a lot of time carefully crafting it, and it's certainly better than what we have. And if we find out that there's issues, we can tweak it, but I think it,
I'd be cautious on how much we tweak, because if we open that can of worms, everybody's going to have a different opinion.
sure. Yeah.
And it's going to go off the rails really quickly.
Yeah,
I
no,
would
yes.
prefer, if it looks like it's going sideways and there's a lot of like questions and ambiguity and people are really unhappy, vote to push,
Pass over.
pass over it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have an underlying, as incomplete as and imperfect as it is, we do have a bylaw. You know, we're just trying to make this better at this point. So,
Yeah, I guess there's no harm in our admitting that trying to deal with noise right up front is complex,
mhm.
and that our objective here is that this is an interim measure. Do we want to say that? That we really think that this is an improvement, and that our goal is to look at a more comprehensive way to deal with noise that might have it outside of the zoning bylaw, and that town council is suggested that, you know, they have some comparative work from other towns that we might utilize going forward, that sort of thing. I mean,
That's a double-edged sword, because
I know
if we go forward and say all of that and admit, our credibility goes out the window on this particular part of it. And so people might just at that point force our hand to say, well, don't forward this now, just work on what you need to work on and come back to us. So,
Well, because the current one is so, I mean, just the inconsistency of the time alone.
right. So
this-
my preference would be to say that it's a complex issue. You know, we worked on it, and you know, this is from a lot of different people's input, and this is what we have to date, and let it go at that.
yeah,
Yeah,
And then if it gets skewered, then we can vote to pass it over. Does somebody want to make a motion?
yeah, I'll move that we support this article at the town meeting.
second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to support this at town meeting. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing nothing, I'll ask you to vote. Timothy Wheeler,
Aye.
Jay Teach,
I,
Carolyn McDonald,
Aye.
and Tom Sanford, aye. Thank you. We shall put this forth as is. Excellent. So,
I'll write up the report for the committee on our votes.
okay,
So,
we'll just dig them up.
well, I don't know, that's your decision, but you know, but I'll write the reports for us, because I got that. I mean, I can just cut and paste from past ones, so it's easy.
Okay,
So we need 6 reports. And 6 so we have the report on the vote and the report on the hearing.
correct.
Okay, I'll do those.
Thank you. So other than that, we should be in good shape for what we need to do for town meeting. There's our reports in the thing, everything's up to date.
Yeah.
We'll hand out the flyers ahead of time. I think we should be good to go.
Oh, we have to vote on the letter.
On which letter?
The letter of support for the MVP grant.
We do. Yes. So I circulated around a letter.
Yep.
Everybody's had a chance to read it. I do need to modify it to be addressed to the proper person.
Yes,
And where
and
that
I,
needs to go.
yeah,
But other than that, the body of the letter will stay the same. So I will entertain a motion to support that letter and issue it.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No, seeing none, I will ask you to vote. Jay Teach,
I,
Timothy Wheeler,
Aye.
Carolyn McDonald,
Aye.
Tom Sanford, aye. Motion carries. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, that was a good letter.
Thank you. Okay, Jay, did you want to talk about the what's going on over at the mall further? Or
I'll give everybody an update.
please, okay, let's start with that.
So if you've been down to the mall lately, you will notice that there are 100 parking spaces behind Sears occupied by buses. It's kind of like a sea of buses down there now.
Well,
We had a presentation at the ZBA meeting from a person who wants to rent 240, I think, parking spaces, so a lot more than that, to use to store material. I haven't gotten, there's a lot more I'd like to learn about it, but I think he's a contractor, and I think they're maybe burying some kind of cable or something, because they're working in a number of towns sort of near us, but up and down 495. And for
Well,
some-
it's Stowe, Sudbury, and Hudson, I believe,
Is that what it
is what
is?
he told us at Conservation, yeah.
Okay, and they're digging trenches or something and taking a lot of material out, which they need to store while they do something and then put it back in.
No, they're taking it out and moving it to other homes. They're not gonna put it back in. Or most of it anyway.
You know,
Yeah.
what is it they're digging for? Because we never get that.
It's some sort of utility work. I don't know that they said exactly what it was, but they will be taking soil out because we're concerned about how they're storing the soil.
Right.
So that was something we discussed long. They will be storing it and for resale
Oh,
or moving on. I don't know that they're selling it. I should probably not say that. It will not go back where it came from.
so it's being stored at the Solomon Pond?
Correct.
Oh, really?
yeah, they were gonna set
Yeah.
up bins for it, but it's a
Right.
lot of material, thousands.
Right.
of yards, I think.
Yeah, and they'll have conduit and other
Right, that's right.
materials that they'll be using. But the soil is a big part of what they will be storing.
And he said they were, I think they have one triaxle dump truck, and they were gonna, he said 3 or 4 trips a day, although he was kind of non-committal on that, I would say. And so that's one issue, is how much trucking and how much material. They're gonna have a loader and a rubber tired backhoe and or a excavator and a compressor or something. So a little bit of equipment being stored there. But they're gonna be moving the material around with a loader, right? So
So how do they keep it from migrating into the storm drains?
Well, that is the part that I'm interested in from the conservation standpoint. So for storage, we've asked that all the bins be lined with some sort of lining to keep it from washing out. Because the way he described it to us anyway is the bins would be just Jersey barriers.
Right.
Right.
yeah,
And, you know, there's really one spot where the whole parking lot kind of dips down towards the wetlands. And it's not, you know, the wetlands aren't right there, but they're close enough that in a heavy, crazy storm, the curb could definitely be overwhelmed, and it could be a mess.
where does storm drains go to? Is it a retention pond or something, or does it go?
There's a couple of detention ponds there.
Yeah, there's 3
Yeah, there's
right along the river.
right.
Right, so
But we can tell from our annual update from them when they're cleaning out of their catch basins, how much soil is being trapped now and
Sure.
compared to what's gonna be generated later on.
So there were several butters that attended that were concerned about noise because they're on River Road West. You can kind of see their houses through the trees with no leaves on them. They say they can hear everything, the parking lot. And of course, you know, initially they were talking about fairly wide range of hours and days. And if they got a loader and they're loading trucks, you know, every time the thing backs up, depending on how big it is, it may be one load or 25 every time they're filling a truck, right? So that's an issue. I was talking to the chairman of the Earthworks Committee who should be involved in this. He said one of the issues is going to be dust because in the summer, the way it's been so dry some years,
Sure.
you can park at the mall and the dust is going to blow across the parking lot and they're going to be, cars are all going to be dirty. So I was thinking about opening a car wash if this is going to go through, but yeah. So the broker, there's a broker, I don't know who, I don't know if it's the bank, somebody owns the property that, somebody owns the Sears building and the ground lease. So New England Development or somebody owns the actual land, but I think there's a long-term ground lease to what was Sears. And this broker is trying to find a new tenant. And so far, all she's been able to come up with is the school buses in this. We were concerned about whether this would get in the way of finding a good tenant, you know, tenants take the building.
Sure.
He says, well, it would take us 6 months to get a contract, and then it would take them 18 months or something to refit the building for a new purpose. So it would be a two years, and these guys will be gone by then. I would say, depends how motivated everybody is.
Exactly.
Because it could happen a lot faster than that, probably.
Right. So at the meeting, because at our meeting, they said 18 months to 2 years. And then I heard somebody else said two, maybe 3 years. And did they say anything about that?
She said the same thing. She said 6 months to get a contract and 18 months to 2 years.
No, that they would be leasing
that they
this
would be renting.
property.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Lynn had said that there wasn't a stipulation on the application to the ZBA about a time. And so when I spoke at the Economic Development Committee meeting to the rep from the mall, she said, we would not entertain a period longer than, I mean, she talked about 2 years because of the timetable you're talking about, where she said, if we found a tenant that really was eager to come in, we'd want them to feel comfortable about not having to compensate for this other activity in their parking lot while they finally got to the point where they wanted to open. And she said at the Economic Development Committee meeting, you know, they might even write into the lease agreement that it could be, you know, discontinued with a 6-month window or something like that if they really got pushed. And Lynn's got her hand up.
Right. Lynn?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
We're looking at 2 years, but in the letter from the building inspector, it did say 3 years. A couple of things to update you on. I did go to council and asked, I was concerned about providing a site plan that is a recordable instrument for this contractor's yard. So I went to council and asked if we could make it non-recordable and put a time limit on. And she says, yes. So that's something we can carry forward to the future. We can make she said, there's nothing in 40A and nothing in our bylaws that would prevent us from making it a time limited and non-recordable site plan. So that was good news. just as a point of information, I have also, because I talked to you before, Tim, asked council who really should be doing this hearing. The die is cast for this one, but I think going forward, we need to know if something else comes up. Do we, is this a ZBA thing or is it a planning board thing? And I honestly believe it's a planning board thing because we're monkeying with, it's 393 spaces that they want to take, plus, travel spaces at the mall, plus 100 for lease for the buses that expires in August. But I really think what is it? Shelley Clark is her name. She is the project manager for Solomon Pond Mall. And I think we need to impress upon her and send a note to her saying that she can't just go ground lease this parking lot out for other uses without coming to the town first. And we can decide who the town is. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Because the buses, when they were there earlier, when Diane was assistant assessor, were noted and captured, and I think the town got some revenue out of it, either through personal property or excise tax
personal
somehow.
property.
And I said to Molly the other day, what's going on? And she said, well, I've talked to them and they haven't gotten back to me. And I thought, obviously they've been there a while if the lease is up in August. So, we've lost out on an opportunity here to capture some revenue, and it ought not to just happen on their whim. It ought to be through some process.
We haven't approved it, right?
The buses.
No, the contract.
No, I'm talking about the buses as well. No, this thing hasn't been approved yet, but
Oh, I thought you
the
said
buses have been there and we're not getting anything out of it.
So we're not getting personal property tax revenue?
I don't believe Molly knew that they were there and no one was capturing that revenue, so.
Well, I think we need to have council send them a letter telling them that if they're going to ground lease any of the areas in the overlay district, but we need to decide whom they need to notify. We need your counsel on how we should proceed with this. You are the overlay district folks, and how you feel about it will be very important to the ZBA. Are we setting a precedent?
Oh, we damn sure we are.
Well, does the current overlay zoning district allow contractor yards in that?
Well, actually the overlay district is an overlay of limited industrial, and they don't allow retail stores. So it's the overlay that has controlled that. I also pointed out several parts of the overlay district where you folks have jurisdiction over the number of parking spaces. And in both the case with the buses and with this contractor's yard, they're eliminating parking spaces.
Right.
So we'll get a ruling from Amy as to whom this really belongs. Are you our liaison, Tim? Have
To
you
the planning-
accepted this crown of glory?
To the planning board?
No, to the ZBA.
No, you're our liaison.
Yeah, but liaisons have to go two ways.
Oh. You have been willing to call me and I've been willing to chat with you. So sure, if the rest of the board is happy with that, we can continue to converse.
I
Okay.
won't stand in your way.
We get
And again,
along.
thank you, Jay, for attending the last meeting because things are kind of heating up for us. Did you see that we have an application for the cannabis facility? They're breaking it up kind of interestingly, and I didn't understand why until this morning. They only applied for a variance to put parking spaces in front of the building. They did not apply for a special permit, and they have not as yet applied for a site plan. But they did send verbiage with it, you know, that that's their ultimate intent. Well, when I wrote the hearing notice, I wrote in the hearing notice that the ultimate goal is a cannabis production and manufacturing facility, and that the petitioner chose not to apply for the special permit and site plan until after the parking is dealt with. Leanne got a call this morning. They were posting it in the paper and they wanted to remove the sentence about cannabis. So I'm not sure that they're in their negotiations with Hudson or neighbors or anyone else have told them what their ultimate goal is to use that property for.
Huh.
We're also going to have Amy part of the cannabis facility, but I'd like to know or understand better this whole idea of parking in front of the building. I'm not sure I understand the purpose of it.
You mean the limit of not allowing it?
Right.
What we began to see years ago was the movement toward restricting parking away from the front of building unless it was for handicap parking, and that it needed to be either to the side or to the rear, with the notion that you ended up without, you didn't end up with a streetscape that essentially was full of cars with buildings in the back. You ended up with buildings, you know, forward and parking secondary. Now, in their instance, they're not on a thoroughfare, they're on a cul-de-sac. They have a hardship in that they have a wetlands behind the building. So if they do the building, the setback that's required in the zoning, they're sort of restricted as to where they can put their parking, as I understand it. So that's why they're looking for the variance.
Well, the building's already there, right?
No.
No.
The well and septic, the well's certainly there. And the pump house. And I'm assuming while they were doing all that, they also did the septic. But I
No.
don't know that for a fact.
But the building isn't there.
Well, I'm having a hard time how we're going to reach a decision about parking in front of a building if the building isn't there and we don't have a site plan.
So they're not going to give you a site, they just want a ruling as to whether they can.
They want a variance from the parking restriction.
But they won't show you where the building would be located in relation
Oh,
to.
they're showing us, yes, they have a plan, but they're not asking for a site plan
Approval.
or a special permit at the same time.
So they're just saying, we have a building, it's going to be located here. If we want to stay away from the wetlands and follow the rest of the guidelines in terms of the location of the building, we have to park in front.
Why does
Well,
that sound
actually, they're going to
unreasonable?
put in 39 spots. They're going to be all around the building from what they show.
Yeah.
I would make them keep it just in front of the building. I would require that. There's plenty of space because the whole Entwistle pad is there also, and they own Entwistle.
The building's gonna be located off of a cul-de-sac that's off of that end of that road.
Correct.
So that-
It's, so I don't know if you've ever been up Bigelow,
Mhm.
but it's, you go up, it
Mhm.
opens up into Entwistle, and then the building's gonna be right there.
Gonna be beyond it.
Gonna be beyond it, but yeah, I
Right.
did the original site walk up there. It's beautiful woods up there.
Hmm.
Or it was.
Do they own multiple lots up there that they're not using, Carolyn?
They might own one to the, what would that
West.
be?
It's to the west.
To like west, southwest-ish.
Yeah.
And
Is it
they own,
abutting?
In Hudson?
No,
I think it's in Berlin, but I think it's
landlocked.
landlocked and it's conserved. Why do I feel like it?
It buffers it doesn't it buffer
Oh,
the Gates Pond?
Yes, it buffers Gates Pond, but if I remember the topography right,
It
so
also rises, yeah.
exactly. So it comes in pretty flat behind Entwistle,
Right,
crosses the wetlands. There's a little bit of dry, and then it's a sheer cliff
correct.
up. And that cliff, I think, carries over into the abutting. So the topography alone limits them to this space.
Do they have enough land to put the building on? I mean,
It's a huge building, isn't it?
yes.
Didn't I read
120,000
like,
feet,
or some, right, so I mean,
like 120,000 feet,
is it 120?
something like that.
I thought I read 92.5, but either way, that's,
Okay.
neither one is very
They may have
different than
shrunk
the
it
other.
down. The last thing I had known, they were looking for like 120.
Right,
Because to make them supposedly to make it the facility economical is like 150,000 square feet is what they look for.
wow.
And they said they could do it in 120. So it's surprising that they were going to be down.
And is it a
more than 100.
two-story building
Mhm.
that they're looking for? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Well, what are, what are the rules for the size of the lot versus the size of the building in a limited industrial? Because that building looked like it pretty well covered everything in sight.
Well, the acreage on that parcel looks to me like it's 16 something acres. Immediately behind it is the land that belonged to Faith Lindsay, and that got picked up by conservation.
And
then
the-
there's lot one beside it, but where's my map? I thought lot
Right.
one was Town of Hudson.
The wetlands pretty much bisect the property.
Right.
They did get a superseding order of conditions because we didn't want them to cross the wetlands to put the well in.
It looks like the 6.5 acres is next door to it, and that is the other parcel. So there's 16 in the parcel that would have the cul-de-sac. And then there's 6 acres adjacent to it. And then if you go further southwest, you bump into Town of Hudson land, and if you go to the northwest, it's all that conservation land that we have.
The 16 acres and the 6 acres are owned by the same body, right?
I didn't
By
go to
the
the right
trust.
site to,
Well, what, what I'm thinking, Tim, I remember going to that pre-existing non-conforming seminar that CPTC put on. And they said that, you know, like in the case of a non-conforming, if the individual owned land in the area that was adjacent and was in the same name, you could force them to combine the lots.
yeah. So this one's non-conforming in what regard?
Well, that's why I'm asking if the size of the building or even the parking. Okay,
Well, it's a 16-acre parcel. If the building was 120,000 square feet, that's 3 acres. If the green area requirement is 50%, and we assume that the parking wouldn't be any greater than the structure, they're well within the
well, you got to
50%.
remember it's 2 stories.
Yeah, but I mean, when Tom talks about 120,000 square feet, does that mean that's the footprint?
No, if it's, it was the total square footage of the building.
Yeah.
So if it would be, you know, 60,000 square foot footprint.
Yeah, so there, but now we're down to 1.5 acres. The parking isn't going to take up much more than that, if that. And so
So you're
they're,
3 acres versus 16. So
I
you're,
mean, they shouldn't have much trouble in terms of compliance with the green area.
Okay,
Right, again, because they need to do it all on the Hudson side of those wetlands.
right.
All they can do is, all they have permission to cross that wet area for is their pump house, which is all they did. They can't put any of the building, any of the parking, anything on the back.
So that you say it bisects it is like a 50%, so 50-50.
Well, let me show you.
So if it's a 16-acre site, they have 8 acres to play with.
Maybe, I don't even think it's that much. Let's see if I
But your
can-
green area ratio includes the wetlands.
Right, right. So
So-
from a ratio standpoint, they're
They're
probably
fine.
fine. But from a practical standpoint of how they're going to manage this,
You got about 6 acres to play with.
Yeah, because their problem is they have a minimum side yard of 100 feet, a
Right.
minimum front yard of 50, and a minimum rear yard of 75. So they're just boxed in.
right, they've got this. The crossing for the pump house, I believe, is right here. And I believe the pump house is over here somewhere, but you can see how sheer that is. So up here, this is all, 75 feet up this sheer cliff
Yep.
is the top. So this is the top of that.
Is any of Entwistle's storage of material in Berlin?
I don't think so. The lot looks like it follows the town line.
Yeah. So I can see why they would want to discover whether they're going to be able to park in front of the building before they move forward.
Because they're gonna have to come up with some other kind of plan
Right.
but even a box, just like draw a rectangle. This is, if we can park in front of the building, this is where we want to put the building.
Yeah.
I'm sure would be helpful.
oh, they did that,
Oh, all right. Well, at least there's that.
but the problem is there's no application for a site plan.
So they're not beholden to that rectangle.
That's my thinking.
Right.
I mean, we can write it up in the decision if and when we grant this. But I mean, we're gonna have to be very specific. We are granting 6 spots, but where they are, and do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And as I remember, I don't have the plan in front of me, but as I remember, the plan showed the parking spaces to be away from the building.
Towards
And they-
Hudson?
No, they were in Berlin, but they were away from the building. They were in front of the building, but away from the front of the building. So anyway, not to keep your meeting going, I think it'd be helpful if you could, especially you, Tim, if you have accepted your crown, to have someone attend that hearing, which is going to be on Thursday. We just had too many hearings, so we had to put them over till Thursday.
Thursday next week?
No, the second Thursday. It's the 13th, I think.
May,
I know, the 12th.
May 12th.
And if you have any recommendations for us about the mall. At the hearing, Jay gave you a good synopsis of what happened. What they want to do is put that soil in concrete containers. And there's going to be a lot of it. And I know Margaret was concerned to the point where she wrote a note and said, you know, you have free reign with council.
Yeah.
So they've met with you, have they?
They
Carolyn?
have. They have.
Conservation?
Yep. I mean,
And you guys wrote a letter saying you had no concerns, right?
no, we wrote a letter saying that we were concerned about the soil storage. Other than that, you know, because there are no there's no like wetlands, any jurisdictional. I'm trying to remember if that's true now that I think about it. They did have a map showing the 200-foot riverfront and the 100-foot buffer zone. And I think if they're not in it, they're close to it. But I am concerned about the soil storage. And so in the letter that we wrote to you saying, other than the soil storage, we don't have any concerns because they're
Okay.
not disrupting, you know, they're not pulling up the asphalt. They're not, but we are concerned about the soil storage.
Well, I think it also may require a permit to import soil to the town, even if they're just gonna store it
Sure.
There is.
Right.
and export it. So that question's gone to Amy also.
I
Is,
think so. By the way, the concrete containers are probably open front.
Mhm.
Right.
Get a loader in there to move the material.
Yep. So, and I talked to him about that, you know, about the direction that opening faces, you know, that we want final say in the placement and the positioning of, or input into the final positioning and arrangement of the soil storage containers.
so how does the planning board feel about the concept of this contractor's yard at the mall? Notwithstanding resolving the soil issue?
I think the
I don't
first
see
question
how
is-
it benefits the town because there's no use that's a taxable activity. There's going to be a couple of vehicle. I mean, we're accommodating a need that the mall has to generate revenue. That's about it. And it seems like if there's wetlands issues and soil import issues and culvert, just on and on and on. Seems like a headache that ought to be avoided.
The kind of the basic first question though is it allowable with the existing overlay zoning? And the answer to that is that clearly no.
No, the letter from the building commissioner said it would require a special permit and site plan approval. Based on the fact that the underlying district is limited industrial, and you can have a contractor's yard in a limited industrial.
I thought we just said that the overlay took precedence over the underlying.
That's what I said.
Well, and that's what you've asked town council.
I have now, yes, yesterday.
Yeah. So that'll help us resolve that part of the question.
Well, what she's gonna come back and say is the ball in my court or your court?
Right. That's fair. As long as she gives us the right answer.
I think
Lynn
I'm
feels
closer
the
to
same
her than
way.
you are, Tim.
What?
I think I'm closer to her than you are, Tim.
Is this Amy?
Yeah,
Oh, no, she and I are best friends.
I think we have to differentiate between, is this a request for a new currently unallowed use for the parking lot, or is this just an issue of somebody's got a big, a giant plot, like say they were trying to do this at the old sand pit, right? Then there's the issues of making sure that it's not leaching into the river and all those kind of things.
well, I feel somewhat better now that I know we can time limit the site plan, okay? Because you can time limit a special permit. My problem
It's
is,
the issue of noise, and which is a significant one.
yes, and the neighbors want the barriers that were supposed to originally have been erected, and they aren't.
I saw that.
Whoa, what barriers?
It's a wood picket fence like 6 feet high. There's no way that's going to stop the noise from a loader.
The wood picket fence was put up as a temporary measure when we first put the mall in, while the trees that were planted behind it grew.
Huh.
And then
So
there
it-
was supposed to be a forester's evaluation and recommendation about the upkeep of the barrier over time. So it was pruned and managed in such a fashion that it continued to serve as a buffer, those white pines that were planted. But I don't think there's ever been a forester's report. And I don't think there's been a regular annual report on the dynamics of the detention basins.
Well, the abutter that was complaining said that the contractor who was putting up the picket fence ran out of money, so they didn't finish it, which does seem to be the case. But in any event, the fence is going to do nothing for the sound.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But the buffer isn't there either.
Well, there's
The pines have grown to a point where they don't buffer anymore.
Right.
You can see the houses. I took a picture of it. You can see the houses, but it's difficult to see them.
Yeah.
Sure, and then the deciduous
And-
trees.
And then there's a question of lighting and signage that I've asked them to come back about.
For this activity,
For the contractor's yard, yes.
yeah.
But if it took a town meeting vote to approve the overlay district, right, with a
Right.
set of, with a bylaw covering what the allowed uses and everything else were, and all of a sudden we're going to change the allowed uses, doesn't it need to go back and get town meeting approval again? I mean, can we do that?
I wonder if town council will say, as long as the overlay use is performing, you can't substitute and revert back to the original
The
underlying
underlying.
zone.
That would make sense, yeah.
Right.
And then, but what it, and so what it would mean is if you discontinued the overlay use, that underlying industrial zone, limited
Right.
industrial zone would continue. Maybe that's what she'll say.
But otherwise, it's a modification to the overlay district.
Overlay
Yeah.
district.
And it belongs to us.
Right.
And if that's the case, we're gonna say this is substantial
Modification.
then you need to go back to town meeting.
You want it
Agreed.
back? Tim, you
We
want
want-
it back?
Well, we wait till what Amy says. She likes you best.
Which she's gonna say it's up to you. No, and even in like the overlay district for the regional shopping center, it says, permits the development of a regional shopping center subject to specific regulations in this section and regulations in other sections that are not modified by the provisions of this section. The regulations of this section relating to use, building, and lot dimensions, development density, parking, signage, and site plan approval shall apply only to a regional shopping center and not to any other that is use that is allowed or permitted. And then as far as the parking goes, any change in the parking has to come before the planning board. Okay?
Yeah.
Because there's a certain number of parking spaces for the regional mall.
Yep.
And like it says, conformance with the development plan approved by the town, as the same may be modified by the planning board through the site plan approval process. I mean,
Yep.
that's right there in the regional shopping center overlay district definitions. If I sound frustrated, I am.
No,
So we'll know next time, right?
yep.
But for this time, how do you folks feel about us approving or not approving what is before us?
Well, I don't
Well,
think.
if
it's
Amy
the-
says it's all right, I'm fine.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, because it's not the highest and best use of the property.
I don't think Amy's gonna tell her it's all right.
No, what Amy's gonna tell me is the zoning board of appeals can't do anything with it.
Right,
Right.
And
comes
it'll come
back
back
to
to
us.
you guys.
right.
Right.
I agree.
But can we do that to the petitioner since we accepted his petition and since the building inspector told him that's what they need?
Yeah, I would say if council has said that it was an incorrect judgment, why can't you throw it back to us?
I agree. I don't think he made the right call on that.
Okay. Or we could just refuse it. And put this one to bed and you can take the next one.
Well, if Amy says you don't have the authority to refuse it or to accept it, you're not gonna go anywhere then, right? So,
Well, she's not available for our next meeting.
oh, she isn't? You don't
Nope.
think she'll give you a ruling between now and then?
No.
Huh.
And Carolyn, could I ask you earlier tonight, your first folks, can I have a copy of that CR and the plans that you have?
The Cotting CR,
This, yeah,
I mean, the Chedco.
yes.
Yeah. Yep. I can definitely send it to you as well.
Tom and I want it too.
Didn't I get it from you, Tim?
I gave you a
I
paper
was
copy.
very good, Tim. I
Yeah.
was very good.
You
was
were very
seething,
good,
but
Lynn.
I was seething, but I was very good.
It's a good thing your camera was turned off.
This is true. And my hands were down. Okay, so your expertise to us is to throw it back to you. If Amy says it belongs in your jurisdiction. If she doesn't say that, then, and says that we should continue and finish this hearing, what's your guidance?
Refuse it.
Yeah, don't allow it.
Agreed.
Okay. Seems unanimous with you folks.
Yeah.
And Jay, what do you say, Jay?
Well, I just think it's a huge change from
Agreed.
what's allowed into the overlay. So you got to get over that somehow. You gotta get compelling reason to change the existing overlay zone.
Should we write a note to this Shelley Clark telling her that any supplanting of the parking spaces needs to come to the town for approval,
Yep.
even though we don't know at this point who the approval would be? We can just say town approval, right?
But well, there's two different issues. One is the change in parking spaces, but the other is the allowed use. Even if it's one parking space, if it all of a sudden becomes a contractor's yard, it was never allowed as, that was not an allowed use.
Well, we'll see what she says, because
Yeah.
that's the only place a contractor's yard can be, is in limited industrial.
But it's not limited industrial anymore. I mean, you can give her the
Well,
overlay.
as long as the overlays is in existence.
If the mall
function.
closed
Yeah,
and
if
they
the whole
demoed the
thing went
building and
away,
it wasn't a shopping center anymore,
Exactly.
then it's limited business or limited
Limited
industrial.
Yep.
But
Even then, to take it out of the overlay, I think it would take town meeting. Town meeting put it in the overlay.
right. But either way, if you only recognize the limited industrial, then the rest of the mall is in violation.
Right.
What we should be doing is sending Shelley a copy of the bylaw showing the allowed uses in the overlay district. And she can go lease it to anybody that is going to use it for one of those allowed uses.
Oh, I'm not gonna tell her she can lease it.
No, for an allowed use, not for a contractor's yard.
No, but she's talking about the parking lot. We don't want her doing that to the parking lot for anybody, right?
Right.
Okay, guys, you've been most helpful.
And let him park in front of the building with the cannabis.
So say you all,
Yeah, I don't see how you
Yeah.
can get around it.
In that location, yeah.
Yeah.
okay,
The hardship.
okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, we've exhausted everything that was on our agenda. We talked
Fantastic.
about, huh?
And our members.
And our members. Is there anything else that we need?
What happened to the 299 South Street Church proposal that was supposed to be on the agenda?
I'm sure they canceled because they came into conservation and they had some interesting, they wanted to, basically they wanted us to approve or support so that they could go to the state to try to get the CR modified. They wanted to swap, so here's the lot, here's the conserved land, here's the wetland, the riverfront. They wanted to move the amount of acres that of land onto the riverfront so that it was the same number of acres, but they could use the land. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, first of all, the riverfront's already protected. Second of all, that is not in the spirit of what Mr. Wheeler wanted to happen to this land.
Right.
You know,
What religion was he? What kind of church did he like?
Well,
didn't matter. And then one person in the audience was like, oh, the Dover Amendment, which I need to look it up a little bit more thoroughly, but my understanding is that certain nonprofits can get around certain laws.
but Ronnie Wheeler agreed to put a CR on that land, not just to protect it, but so he could build a 15,000 square foot building on the parcel he owned that was zoned commercial. So that was an exchange of value in addition to the protection, essentially.
Right.
So it's far more complex than just this, you know, I wanted to protect the land, so I put a CR on it and everybody agreed. He put a CR on it with the intent, purpose, and the way the language reads in our bylaw is the CR has to be on buildable, residentially, agriculturally zoned land.
Correct.
And that 12 acres fit that bill because it wasn't in the rivers bill or the
Right.
wetlands.
Right. It's
so-
not protected any other way.
Right.
Right.
So there's a different dynamic going along with that one too. So
Right. Yeah, they had, had, actually, I have the papers right here, but it doesn't matter. They said, oh, well, you don't like that proposal. What about this one? Oh, you don't like that one. What about this one? They had 3 different, and, I told them, the minister was a very nice man. He gave this long spiel about how their church has grown, has like tripled with COVID and everything, and that they need a bigger place than the place they have in Marlboro. And I kind of, Tim, what I was telling you the other day, I said, if you have to work this hard to try and squeeze what you want onto this land, this doesn't seem like it's the right piece of property for you guys. And you should look elsewhere. It's just what you need cannot happen on this piece of property.
Sand pit is still available.
Pardon?
Sand pit is still available.
Yeah.
He really wants to be in Berlin.
Right. But don't we want to do something different with that?
I don't know.
I mean, it's not necessarily. I mean, I
Right.
don't know what would go in there.
It's not like there's no other land available,
Right. Right. And I didn't tell them to look for another piece in Berlin. I just told them this wasn't the right piece for them.
You ever seen swaps like that? Someone's got equivalent land and they want to swap land in and out of, swap the CR for the unrestricted land of equal value and size. Does the state allow you to do that?
No. No, because it's a modification to the CR, and we certainly wouldn't have the ability to do that. It'd have to be done at a state level.
But have you ever seen the state do that though? That's what I'm asking.
I haven't personally, no.
I'm wondering.
And, like I told these people earlier tonight, I don't think the state looks favorably on people who are trying to change CRs.
Right.
You know, I think there has to be a more compelling reason than I want to.
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, if CRs were easy to change, no one would do them.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, you know, they are sacred documents.
Yeah.
If they don't, on that one on Central Street on Mo's, if they don't maintain the greenhouses and that business there, right? There's an expiration, what is it, a year or two where that variance expires, right? Because the greenhouse, the business on that piece of property is not allowed. It's grandfathered, right?
I looked, if you look in the bylaw, a greenhouse not associated with a farm is allowed in the agricultural residential zone by special permit. Let me look at that again.
Which they don't have, and from what I remember in the CR, you can't have any permanent building. You can't even put a fence on that property.
And you also can't have a use for profit then. That's
Right.
also, so there's.
Greenhouse, when not associated with a farm, is allowed by special permit if there wasn't a CR, but
Right.
the CR that Mr. Cotting put on was pretty deep in terms of its restrictions, if you look at the language.
Right.
Now, the Conservation Commission has allowed modifications that were presented as making the agricultural use of the land viable on some of Mr. Cotting's CR. So someone might argue that the greenhouse that's there, they haven't sold anything in a year, but if they started to sell out of it, you know, it's a continuation of a use that we allowed. You know, I don't know.
Well, and
You
I
didn't
believe
allow
they
it.
sold things. Right. So
You didn't allow it. They just
isn't
put
that
up
when
the
they
greenhouse.
chased? Right, isn't that when they chased Tom Andrew off the property?
Yeah,
Oh,
Tom went to
yeah.
say, beg your
and
pardon.
threatened his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't pay me enough. So he
Yes.
left,
Yes.
as we all would have.
Right, but I also believe, I mean, as far as them selling something out of there, I think they were selling pumpkins. Like
Oh,
right
yeah,
up
and they were-
until they left. There
And they were
was,
selling hay and they were selling different kinds of plants. Yeah.
Yeah, house trailers and lawnmowers.
right, but no, I mean, but the most recent thing, I think, was in the fall, that they were selling something out of that space. Last fall, so, you know, it could be argued 2 years from then,
Oh,
was my point.
But that applies to
never
the
did get
ARC
it.
zone. Then the question still reverts back to the CR and whether the CR ever would have allowed that use. And just because it took place, if it was never, I mean, the CR argues it needed to go through site, I mean, get a special permit, which it never did. So
Right.
is it a legit use regardless of
Right.
the fact that it existed for a period of time? It wouldn't be allowed with the CR, and it never got the special permit it needed if it was in the ARC zone. So I don't, you know,
Right. That,
Lynn will have to ask Amy about that one too.
so we're not going to get a Burger King, is that what you're saying?
No.
not ever, my friend.
And the drive-throughs, I saw.
Lynn, I would never do that to you. My gosh, how would you even sit? How would you even chair the special permit process for that?
I
Having it
can't.
right, yeah,
I can't.
right.
I mean, realistically, the only use for that chunk of land unless something changes is a single family home, right?
Right.
I mean, if they take the house that's there down, they can't put another house there up.
Right,
That's
right.
not-
They should
can only put a
renovate
house
that
where the
house.
barn is.
Warren is.
Right, they should
So-
renovate that house
House, right,
as pre-existing non-conforming.
forming.
And
Yep,
if they want to put one more house where the barn is,
Yep.
that's really all they can do with that.
Well, as I remember in the CR that Cotting did, he left 2 acres around the house that stayed residential agricultural and were not covered by the CR.
That's right.
Okay, so that ended just about where they have that hay shed or whatever, but that does not include the greenhouse. And it goes as far over as that barn, but the rest of it is all under the CR.
Right.
now they only showed us land that's this side of the railroad track,
Right,
but that lot crosses the railroad track and goes substantially further. So that piece isn't part of that. Mo didn't own that back piece?
my understanding was he did.
So
No,
it's
it may be
landlocked. It's,
subdivided, because it's what they showed. They got a yellow line around the property, 5.5
Yeah.
acres, and it's not including the rail bed.
no. I don't understand that, why that other piece is being left hanging.
That's
I
interesting.
think because if you look at the amount of wetlands in between there, I don't know how you access that back.
There's a little gap. Right at the beginning of the property on the east side, there's a little gap that's drawn in here that connects to the
Well,
rail.
they were waiting for the rail trail to come through and then they'd sell hot dogs down there.
Yeah.
Ah.
Okay,
So the house, though, to be clear, the house is, when the house is not in the, outside the CR, the barn is outside the CR.
Oh, I thought the house was outside the CR.
No, no, it's the barn. The house and the greenhouse are both in the CR, well into it.
yeah, the map that
Those
Waterman
poor
showed us.
fuckers paid $820,000 for that.
Well, that's their problem. It makes it worthwhile for them to try to
Maximize
find a
it.
workaround, but it just seems like the hurdle is just so high. I don't know how they could.
Right.
It's not like we wouldn't mind if you went and got a town meeting vote and there was some reasonable proposal for some commercial business there, it would probably fly, but it's in a CR, so
Right.
can't do it.
Right.
Thank God.
Well, and it would be good to have something better there, right? But
Sure.
Oh, yeah, Friday night fights, I miss them.
Oh, I'm sure at one time that must have been quite the show.
Oh, when the 4 boys, when Mary moved out, okay, and went to Clinton. And the 4 boys
I
were
moved that
living
we
there.
adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Okay,
Wait, everybody else.
aye.
Aye.